Hey, this is Nick Millivoy.
And this is Jason Shadrick.
And this is the 100 Guitarist podcast, where each week we're talking about one of the 100 guitar players that we think you should know. Today, we are talking about Bonnie Raitt.
Yes, the queen of slide guitar.
Giving them something to talk about. Sorry. Before we dig into that any deeper, we want to remind you that you can get at us by sending us a message to 100guitarists at premierguitar.com, and you can leave us a voicemail or send us a text to 319-423-9734. While you're at it, do us a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the Premier Guitar YouTube channel and like this video. Leave a comment too. Why not? And wherever you find your podcast, if you're a listener, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the 100 Guitarist podcast.
There we go. All right, and today's episode sponsored by Rocky Mountain Slide Company.
That's right.
They hit us up. Look, Nick has them right there.
Here we go.
Now, you think company like Rocky Mountain Slide, obviously they do. They make slides. They make amazing slides. Nick's going to talk to you about that in a second. But what surprised me the most when we got our box of goodies from Doc over there were the barrage of guitar picks he also included.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites lately is this guy right here. And get a good look at that. It has this ridge. It's an oversized kind of triangle thing.
Oh, yeah. That's got Jason Shadrick all over it.
That's right. It has those ridges in there. Fits your thumb real nice, right? And here's the thing. I like thicker, stiff picks, right? This is this is not bending whatsoever. But what I really think the magic is, especially in these, is the taper on the pick.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the pick is too thick and there's not a good enough taper, it's gunk. Like there's no right sound to it. So kudos to Rocky Mountain Slides for not only making killer slides, but also these hip picks. So tell us about your slides, Nick.
Yeah, so I got a couple things here to show and tell right now, because it looks cool to have two slides on my finger. I have this one on my ring finger. This is the Dan. These are both signature slides. This is the Dan Lawson signature slide. I like this sort of faux tortoiseshell thing it's got going on. And then we have the Yukihide Takayama signature slide over here on my pinky. So whether you're a ring finger player or a pinky player, I will admit that I am normally, for the longest time, I used my pinky. And I sort of switched to ring finger more preferably. So I actually kind of like that I have both of these here that I can switch between, because my preference sort of now changes by the day. So I love these. I think they have a really nice feel. They're sort of, they're rounded at the end on each end, and they're tapered. So it's wider on this side than it is on that side. I've been really enjoying them. They're a nice thickness. They're pretty light, but I got this other thing here I want to show off, which is this is the Stone Rail Rocket tone bar. And man, I gotta say, these tone bars, these are made of stone. These tone bars are awesome. I play lap steel. I use one of these. Great full tone. Don't have to use a lot of pressure. It has like a really nice weight to it, and I like the smoothness. I also think they look really cool. It is like, in a world where things can be very similar, you end up with a brass tone bar for the rest of your life or something. It's very unique. So there it is. That's the Stone Rail Rocket tone bar, which, yeah, this might be, I will show you. I showed this last time Doc sponsored an episode. I had this one, and this is the one I've been using the most. But this might replace it. I might like them. I might like this one a little bit more. I don't know. I like them both. They have a lot in common. So anyway, check out Rocky Mountain Slide Company. I've been just having such a great time with all these different slides and tone bars, and you're digging the picks. They're very cool.
Shout out to Doc, and go check out Rocky Mountain Slide Company.
That's right.
All right.
Okay.
So speaking of slide guitar, Bonnie Raitt. I love Bonnie Raitt's music. I think she's incredible. Nick?
Look,
Over to you, Nick.
I too, I really enjoy Bonnie Raitt's music. I will say that I think that you're a little bit more the expert on Bonnie Raitt. For me, when I think about Bonnie Raitt, like the first, just generationally speaking here, I think probably for both of us, that'd be interested to hear if you're any different. Bonnie Raitt was a radio staple, like a modern rock radio staple, or like a classic rock radio staple, I guess. I don't know what
It's
some
like,
sort of radio. She was on the radio a lot. I don't know
I
what
mean,
stations were playing her with, by the late
it depends on
80s.
what time you're talking about. If you're talking 90s, early 90s,
I'm talking
then
late 80s, early
that's
90s. I'm
top
first
40.
tuning into stuff. That's like top 40
That's
radio.
top
Yeah.
40. Yeah.
Something to talk about.
Right.
I mean, when Nick of Time is a huge one. Um,
The iconic image of her at the Grammys with like
oh
12
yeah.
of them, you know?
Yeah. And so that's the way I sort of saw Bonnie Raitt was top 40 performer, cool slide guitar parts, but it not ostentatious solo playing, nothing like that, just vibey guitar parts and a great performer, a great singer, real vibe about her. Later eventually I'd check out her solo records, and I sort of had this idea about what her solo records sounded like, which turned out not really to be true. Which was like, I thought that there was like this ripping element to Bonnie Raitt. And what I find is that her first couple solo albums, they're more like Stonesy,
Well, they're like straight up
rootsy,
blue, like especially that first record, they're just straight up acoustic blues tunes.
but acoustic blues with like, she doesn't sound like Muddy Waters. It's like there's this Stonesy blues element that like I think it's so great. It's so cool. And admittedly, like I don't listen to those records, and I mean this in the best way. I don't listen to those really as guitar records so much, like that I'm looking for like the guitar playing is great, but I listen to them as vibe records. I'm listening to the performance, the sound, the production. And I think I think that's really that it's the vibe is so strong on those albums that it's like that's what speaks to me. And it's like the guitar almost sticks out more on the pop stuff because it's like it's bigger or something, or it's like given a bigger place in the music versus like ensemble-y kind of things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the sound of Bonnie Raitt were those huge albums in the 90s, right? So but really, man, this always comes back to some kind of weird thing. It's Columbia House. I was on Columbia House, and I ordered her road tested live record, right? And the big hit off of that record, really was "Burning Down the House." Was Talking Heads, and I was like, "Holy cow, this is great! I've heard this song before. I didn't know Bonnie Raitt wrote this song." Right? It's this amazing point of like discovery that Bonnie Raitt led me to the Talking Heads. Bonnie Raitt led me more back into deeper acoustic blues. Bonnie Raitt led me to John Lee Hooker. There are a lot of these areas that Bonnie Raitt was my vehicle towards, alongside the give him something to talk about, Thing Called Love, and the solo on Thing Called Love, man. Because here's the thing, Bonnie is a certain type of slide player. She's incredible. Her intonation is completely spot on, which you have to be. And I love her vibrato. She also, I'm saying, do I even have a slide here? You have a slide. She also wears her slide on her middle finger, which to me at the time thought it was kind of unusual. I see a lot of people wearing it on their fourth finger, some on their third, but she was one of the first that I saw who could really make it work on her second finger. And at the time,
on her middle finger. Sorry,
on her middle finger, yes. And at times, I couldn't really get my hand around slide, and so I started playing slide, whatever I could, with my second finger, and that opened quite a bit of because I had a bit more control over the slide. I had a bit more control over intonation at that time. I think now I'm pretty comfortably a third, fourth finger slide person, but kudos to Bonnie for showing us how to play chords and then play slide lines as well.
I've never tried this, and actually thinking about chord voicings, that is like, that could be a whole thing right there.
That could be a whole thing.
Be a whole thing.
So she came
I want to
out.
say, you mentioned her cover of "Burning Down the House."
Yes.
I think this would be a good point to mention another cover of hers that I really like, which is her version of "Runaway," like the old Del Shannon song.
Yes.
She did that in 1977 on "Sweet Forgiveness." That is a cool version, and I think that anybody, like, that's a great example of how to update a song. Like, when people cover songs, there's like a type of cover, and there's a whole thread of covers, and I'm not talking about cover bands. I'm talking about artists who record covers on records, where they just like karaoke the song, right? They play all the parts. I'm thinking Weezer playing Africa, and I think we could speak a lot to the significance there of why. Okay, they're covering Africa. Toto's Africa. Why are they doing? What? We can just listen to Toto's Africa, but I understand it's a different fan base, and they're recontextualizing something, but not doing anything to it. And there is like cultural validity in why you would cover something even without touching it from a creative point of view. I can't remember who did it. It doesn't matter, but there was a version of Kate Bush's "Running Up That Hill" after around the time Stranger Things used that song. There was a version of that was really similar, and if anything, just like kind of made like a more stale version of it, I remember thinking. And it's like, just listen to the original. But again, this is about, in that case, maybe like the song was already recontextualized for a new generation. But it's like, I get why that is valid, but for me as a listener, thinking artistically, I think you got to do something with the song. If you're going to spend time and energy, you have a limited resource, right? Making a record is a limited resource. It is not infinite minutes long. So you have to, you're giving this a very specific amount of your time and energy in this limited resource. Why are you covering this song? What does it do for your record? And it's a peeve of mine often when I hear an artist, specifically one I like, or one that I've been playing with, that like plays a song and it's exactly the same arrangement. Like, come on, do something, make it a sonic thing, make it an arrangement thing, make it a style thing, mess with it. Bonnie Raitt's "Runaway" is such a great example, because I know that when I first heard this, it's like I started, I'm thinking, what is this? I know this song really well, but I know every word to this song, but it's so genre specific. It sounds like Bonnie Raitt. It sounds like the 70s. There's, the drum part specifically really sticks out. There's a little bit of a veering towards like a disco drum thing, which, 1977, but it's updating. That version is updating this song. That's the best thing you can do with a cover song, is to perform it in a way that makes it your own and recontextualizes it, not just for somebody to hear you doing it, but to make it your sound. And it fits in with the rest of that record, "Sweet Forgiveness," so perfectly. So that's something I'm a big fan of, is like a good cover. And I think that like Bonnie really nails it on that one.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of her many superpowers, I think, is being able to interpret a song. She, like you said, with "Runaway," with "Burning Down the House," with other songs she's done, and even she's not always, as far as I know, I can tell, she's never the primary songwriter for her material. Right. She's a collector of songs that she wants to then put her spin on. And that to me is such an underrated skill, to be able to find the right song that you can add your voice to. And sometimes it's a song that's well known, like "Runaway," but sometimes it's a song, like one recent example was, she found a song by Brothers Landreth, "Made Up Mind." And that song had already been released by Brothers Landreth. She heard it, dug it, decided to put her own spin on it, and she put it on her latest record. And it's it's incredible. And then that record, even that was very successful for her. But it's amazing how she can find these nuggets of songwriting and be able to really infuse her own style. Like she might be the best example of blues and pop combined, I think.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
her
Let's
her
do it.
90s
Let's
stuff
say it.
is very pop centric. And I don't mean like,
This is
Dua
that
Lipa
is a
pop.
little bit of. If I have one pushback on that, I will say,
How dare you?
that you get to like Nick of Time, and then on through the 90s. Nick of Time's 89. Those hits aren't really blues songs.
But the playing is like when you talk about shoot, what's the name of the song? When you talk about Thing Called Love.
Sure.
I mean, that's a blues song, you know. But
even something to talk about. The playing on there is it's blues slide guitar playing, but the form is not. It is not a blues form.
And I'm making and I've tried to play her solos before. What I love about her solos, especially on those early 90s things, is they're not overloaded with pyrotechnics.
No.
You know,
all that.
If you really wanted to key in on a solo, like I think solo for Something to Talk About, solo for Made Up Mine, even on a more recent thing, and the solo specifically on a thing called Love, those are ones that if you want to get into slide guitar, they're very approachable, they're singable, you know. And I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to play those solos without a slide. I'm going to try and learn those solos without a slide and make them sound like I'm playing a slide, because that's one thing I need to work on. But her sense of phrasing is so
guitar.
vocal. What's that?
Play him on a fretless guitar.
Yeah, no, bro. This
is
downtown New York.
This is the Bonnie Raitt episode. We don't have. This is not a rabbit hole that we have to touch. But
if you mention the Knitting Factory, I'm hanging up on you.
No. I'm going in a very different direction. We will unpack this on a later episode, but Beatles albums, fretless guitar slide. There is an argument that is very strong that I've heard from a couple people that things that I always thought were slide parts on Beatles songs are fretless guitar. George owned a fretless guitar, say around the White Album. We're thinking about like Happiness is a Warm Gun.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's put a pin in that.
So we'll put a pin in that. But
I'll put a pin in that.
You practice your fretless guitar playing with something to talk about.
Hard pass. But to me, I can't and I'm thinking, when you think of slide guitar heroes, Derek Truck, Sonny Landreth, apparently George Harrison, on and on. There's a certain level, like especially with Sonny and Derek, there's just a certain level of sleight of hand magic that on a technical level is pretty hard to get your hands on, right? But Bonnie's solos are so singable and so smooth.
Oh, yeah.
And her vibrato is perfect. Her vibrato is perfect slide vibrato. And to me, that is one of the biggest gateways. And plus the songs are great. It's one of the biggest gateways to get into slide guitar is Bonnie Raitt solos.
Yeah, man, that's a great point. I wish that that's how I learned my first slide guitar solos, because that would have made more sense.
Right? So if we look at the different eras of Bonnie's career, the early recordings, so she made her debut record in 1971, self-titled.
It's 21, right?
21. She was majoring in social relations and African studies at Radcliffe College, right? She comes from a musical family. Her mother's a pianist, and her father is a famous Broadway actor, John Raitt. And, started on piano, moved to guitar, and it was the album Blues at Newport 63 that really she got the bug to play blues slide guitar. And I think if all you're familiar with are her big hits in the 90s, check out that first record.
Oh,
and how raw and just straight up bluesy. You know, it wasn't the second record, more folk and singer-songwriter stuff kind of started to creep in, you know, in the 70s.
Also, the second record sounds like a great sounding record, but sounds like it was recorded in the studio more. The first record was recorded at like a summer camp or something.
Yeah, it was
They
at
like rented a summer camp and
no, up at Lake Minnetonka.
there you go.
In Minnesota. That's what it was. Yeah. She recorded it at a summer camp or a cabin at Lake Minnetonka up in Minneapolis.
Yeah. It sounds, I think that's like puts it in this plate, like it sounds like that. It sounds like it was recorded in a cabin. It sounds like it was recorded, you know, it's like, you know, like Exile on Main Street or something. That's like the Stonesy rootsy thing is like so strong. It's like, you know, and I'm thinking Stone songs, Exile songs like Sweet Virginia or something. God, I could listen to that all day.
So then she gets 1972, Give It Up. Only writes a couple songs on the record. Most of the other songs are by outside songwriters or covers. Mm-hmm. Starts playing, you know, with Jackson Browne. Dave Holland plays on this record. That's your fun fact.
Dave Holland?
Dave Holland.
Wow.
Plays on this record.
Like the jazz bassist Dave Holland. Definitely not a different Dave Holland. Okay.
Correct.
Well, it's funny you say that. So, which record?
This is 1972's Give It Up.
Wow, that's
I can tell you why. It's because of the producer.
Who was producing that?
Michael Kuskuna.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Wow, that's cool.
Is that how you spell that?
Is he on the whole album?
No, just on a couple tracks.
Okay. You know, Herbie Hancock plays on Nick of Time.
That I knew. That's great.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
So that was her first. Give It Up was like her first big commercial success.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she goes on. So then I love these back in the 70s where you make an album 71, 72, 73, 74, 75. Mm-hmm. First 5 records. Boom, 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 right? Sweet Forgiveness comes out in 77. That has Runaway mm-hmm. on it.
Yeah.
Also playing Jackson Browne, Bill Payne. Dave Grisman plays on the record. Michael McDonald's on vocals. Bill Payne on keys, of course. A little bit of a Little Feat Norton Buffalo on harmonica. A little bit of a Little Feat influence creeping in. That record does well. 80s were a tough time for Bonnie Raitt. Early 80s, early mid 80s. Had a couple albums that didn't quite do as well. Then she got sober. Then she goes into the real apex peak era of her career. Nick of Time, Luck of the Draw. Nick of the Time, Luck of the Draw, Longing in Their Hearts. Those 3 records are especially. Don Was produced Nick of Time.
And think about that. Nick of Time is 1989.
Yeah.
She's been making records for 18 years at that point, and that's her commercial breakthrough.
Yeah. So don't give up.
She's a veteran by the time that comes out. That's crazy.
Herbie Hancock plays on Nick of Time, like you said. Michael Landau's on guitar. Mm-hmm. John Jorgensen plays on it. Hutch Hutchison on bass. Ricky Fataar on drums, who are still in her band now. Kim Wilson, Dave Crosby backing. Oh, Dave Crosby and Nash on backing vocals. A lot of great guests on there. This is a way to do like a guest record without going full Supernatural, I think.
Yeah. This is a different model.
Different model. All right. Nick of Time, 89. Luck of the Draw, 91. She follows it up. Don Was comes back to produce. This is something to talk about. I Can't Make You Love Me, another one of her big hits.
Mm-hmm.
And again, those 2 songs right there, something to talk about. I Can't Make You Love Me. Those are songs she found. She didn't write those songs. That's her super. At this point, she's also covering a lot of John Hyatt songs. Thing Called Love was a John Hyatt song, right? So she has that. Let's see who plays on this. Ivan Neville, Bruce Hornsby, Benmont Tench, Stephen Bruton, John Hyatt, Richard Thompson, Robin Ford plays on this record. Tower of Power horns. Because at this point, she's like, she just won a bunch of Grammys for the previous one. So this one was probably like she could do whatever she wants. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And then Longing in Their Hearts, Love Sneaking Up on You. That's a great song.
Oh,
Jeepers. Yeah. Don Was is back to produce. Covers a Richard Thompson song, Dimming of the Day. That's a good one. I like that one. Who else plays on this? A lot of the same people: Ben Montench, Richard Thompson, Hutch, Ricky Fattar, Memphis Horns, Paul Brady, Levon Helm sings, David Crosby sings. Great record. So then there's like 98 on is kind of like her more modern period. She doesn't make albums as often. She's touring a bit more.
Sort of like her veteran phase.
Her veteran phase, right. But I think her last record, Just Like That, this was one that's nominated for a bunch of Grammys. It was probably her most successful record in the last 15 years. This one has Made Up Mine by the Brothers Landreth. Shout out Joey and David, who have they've come through PG office here. Played some tunes for us. Toots Hibbert tune. She's a couple more of her own songs that she's writing. Kenny Greenberg, Mike Finnegan, George Marinelli, Hutch. This mostly looks like using most of her touring band on this. But this one, is definitely one of when I think her latest record is, and she produced it herself, or is one of her stronger albums in the last 15, 20 years. I think
so. Let me ask you this,
great.
Jason.
Yes.
Preferred version of something to talk about: Bonnie Raitt or Brennan Huff?
I'm going to throw a third one in there: Bonnie Raitt, Brennan Huff, or Charlie Hunter.
Oh.
So those were kind of the eras of Bonnie's career. I would say, if you really want to go deep, head to the mountain first. Hit that apex. Hit those 3 records. Go back, listen to the first 2 or 3. And I think.
Oh, you're saying start with the 80s stuff first.
I'm saying start with the 80s stuff because
80s, 90s rather.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you could throw Runaway in there because it's a hit.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of her hits. And I think it's cool. I think it's worth taking a little stop at that, going through some of the singles. But yeah, I'm with you. Like the hits tell the story for sure.
That's right. So later in life, she 2000 inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
She also was a Music Cares Person of the Year. She's the Icon Award from Billboard Women in Music Award, and most recently was a recipient of the Kennedy Center Honor in 2024.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That is cool. So she has won just about every award you can imagine, deservedly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a huge Bonnie Raitt fan. I'll go see her live 10 out of 10 times.
Have you seen her live?
I have seen her twice.
Oh, wow.
It's great.
Bonnie Raitt, queen of tasteful slide playing.
That's right. I've seen her live a couple times, and even in bands I've played in, we've covered a couple of her. Tunes.
Nice.
And her tunes are such good vehicles for just like, check out that Charlie Hunter version. It's an instrumental thing, and it's really slow. But when they hit that one chord change in the pre-chorus, that's the jam. That's the jam.
Solo guitar player Luke Brindley. He does a
yeah.
version of "I Can't Make You Love Me" that I think is really great.
I know Luke. Yeah, he's written some lessons for me before.
His album is the album that it's on. I just remembered this now. It's on the album Thin Spaces, which came out looks like 2020. It's the second track on there. Really great version. Mm-hmm. Cool, expressive thing. I don't know what tuning he's using, but Luke's a big open tuning guy. On Instagram, he's always posting songs and telling you what tuning it is, and definitely follow him over there. There's his stuff is so cool, and so I don't know what he uses for this, but I'm sure it's some cool open tuning and with C's and G's and stuff.
Well, Luke, if you're hearing this, buddy, drop us a line. Let us know what tuning you're using for that. All right. Well, I think we did it. Go listen to Bonnie Raitt. You need to know about Bonnie Raitt.
That's right. And thank you again to Doc at Rocky Mountain Slides for sponsoring this episode. And get yourself some cool blingy slide gear.
There we go. Get at us at a 100 guitarist at premierguitar.com. Drop us an email. Let us know what you think. Or text us. Call us 319-423-9734. If we like your voicemail, we'll throw it on an upcoming show. Also, like I said, Luke Brindley, text us your tunings, buddy. Just hook us up. Make sure to follow and like and subscribe to us on whatever platform you're on. That's the best thing you do to help out the show. Or even just send one of your guitar buddies a link to this if they're on the fence about Bonnie Raitt. Let us help them get on the right side of history, I guess.
Yeah, you don't have to do the work. We did.
No, we got it. All right, Nick, we will see you next week.
See you next week.